Hello, everyone. I am Claudel Ali Bristol, Regional Literacy Coordinator for Region Number 10. Here again, as we continue our discussion on the renewed curriculum. It was John Dewey who said, "Education is not preparation for life, but rather education is life itself." Then I can assume that the opposite is death. So if we don't have an education, we don't have life. That means we have death. It is imperative for us to ensure that our children have an education. And so we're continuing the professional development sessions for this enhanced curriculum. And we're talking today about Module 9, which says subject integration for building context using anchor text. And so we're going to be discussing 3 areas for our topic today: subject integration, building context, and using anchor text. And this aligns quite nicely to my colleague who went before me, Miss Bibi Yasmin Hatim, who spoke a lot about anchor text and deconstruction of the text and so on. So we're going to see the linkage between these 2 modules. And so when we talk about integration, what do we mean? What does the word integration means? And simply it means combining 2 things, 2 or more things into one. And so then if integration speaks of combining 2 or more things into one, 2 or more subjects, 2 or more activities into one teaching learning material, what really is subject integration or curriculum integration? And this refers simply to combining 2 or more subjects when we are teaching a particular lesson. So my focus lesson might be literacy studies or literacy hour, but I'm bringing in something for mathematics as well as something for HFLE or social studies or science. So that's simply what subject or curriculum integration speaks of. Why is this important? Why do we integrate? Why is it important that we have lessons that are structured in such a way? It helps our children to make connections within and among disciplines. So again, we're teaching literacy hour, literacy studies, and we've integrated HFLE or we've integrated science. So our children are able to make that connection with what happens in the language to what happens in social studies, to what happens in science, what happens in the environment, what happens in their daily lives. And so that's what we're talking about. It's important because it allows our learners the opportunity to build context. When children are exposed to subject integration, it gives them the opportunity to achieve deeper and longer lasting learning. And that is what we want. We want to ensure that the education that our children receive is for life. It's life itself. We already established that. And so when it's deep and it's longer lasting, it goes beyond the walls of the classroom and it extends to their lives. The opportunities that are provided to children when we integrate our lessons help them to achieve skills that they can use in their real life world, in their real life experiences. So we're not teaching, and we established this from the onset of these professional development sessions, that we're moving away from the place where teaching is just what happens in the walls of the classroom to now our children are learning, so that the learning, the skills, the values that they learn in the classroom, they're able to use that in the world after they leave the walls of the classroom. And so when we talk about building context, this is what we want to ensure, that when we have these integrated lessons that our children are exposed to, they're able to build context. What do we mean by that? This happens when we provide settings and situations where our children are given the opportunities to take on roles. When they take on these roles, they are engaged in learning and they're applying new understanding in these contexts. And so we're building context for them. So they learn something in social studies. They learn about sharing. They learn about cooperation. They learn about leadership. And they use these same skills in their classroom first, because that's their playground, that's their play field. And then they use it in the world. They use it in their communities. They use it in the country as a whole. They use it in the regional aspect outside of our country and globally if they leave. And so it's important that our lessons are structured in such a way that it helps to build context. And so the next thing I want to talk about today is what is the purpose of subject integration. Or we learned that it's combining two or more subjects when we're teaching a particular lesson. But why? What is the purpose of doing that? And it says the overarching purpose of subject integration is that it gives our teachers the opportunity to skillfully heighten learner engagement. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We have moved from the place where our teachers, as we said before, are authors of knowledge, where they stand in front of the classroom and they tell the children everything, to a place now where they're facilitators of learning. And when they're facilitators of learning, children are given the opportunities to be engaged. Again, the overarching purpose of subject integration is that it gives teachers the opportunity to skillfully heighten student learning. And learning by incorporating real-world experiences in the teaching learning process. Again, it aligns to all that we have been saying for all the modules that we have completed. We want our children to have experiences that they can take out of the classroom and use for the rest of their lives. And so subject integration provides such an opportunity. And so that's the purpose of why we encourage our teachers in this enhanced curriculum to ensure that they're not just doing literacy hour, they're not just doing mathematics, but they bring experiences from other subject areas into that lesson. And so they get the children involved, they hear from them. And so when the children leave the classroom, they're able to relate what they have learned in this classroom to what is happening in their society. How do we demonstrate effective subject integration? And this is very, very important. It's one thing to know what it is. It's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to read about it, check the literature, but how do we do it? And if we don't know that, then that means we're not going to do it. And so this is done by ensuring that different areas of studies, different subjects are connected. And so it cuts across subject matter and discipline. And like I said in the examples that I gave before, we're doing literacy hour, but we're linking that to something that we have done in HFLE. We're linking that to something in science. We're linking that to something in mathematics. So the children are connecting all of these dots. So no longer are we teaching in isolated block, where we're doing just mathematics, where we're just doing nouns, we're just doing pronouns, or we're just doing the groups of animals or the types of animals. We're doing it in a connected manner. When students are able to make connections by engaging in relevant, meaningful activities that can be connected to real life, it's more meaningful and it ensures that learning takes place. So no longer are they sitting in classroom where they're being fed this information, but they're part and parcel of the learning process, and they're given the experience, they're bringing their experiences to the classroom and sharing those. Now, this is so sweet to sit here and talk about. Theoretically, it sounds nice. When you look at the literature, it's beautiful. But in actuality, there are several obstacles that can hinder subject integration. And I want us to talk about those today. What are some of the obstacles that might hinder our teachers from using subject integration even as they implement this renewed curriculum? And the first thing is lack of knowledge. Anything is difficult when we don't know what to do. But if we know what to do, automatically that becomes a little easier. So lack of knowledge might be one that will prevent our teachers from actually using and implementing subject integration. And here, again, we're doing these professional development sessions. It's being broadcasted, but we have been around, we have trained our teachers, we continue to support them every day so that they're able to get this right. And so that knowledge is being provided to our teachers in the regions that have implemented this curriculum. The next one, traditional teaching methods. And we have talked about this extensively, where traditionally our teachers were told that we are the authors of knowledge. We stood in front of a chalkboard and we told the children everything. But the literature has caused us to change. Research and science has changed, and the way our children learn, that we have learned a lot more. And so we have changed, and we're at the place where we're no longer propelling traditional teaching methods. And so our teachers have got to move away from that. And again, coming out of this renewed curriculum, they have been trained extensively in all these new methods that they can use to facilitate learning in their classrooms. The other obstacle is time. The third obstacle that might prevent our teachers from using subject integration is time. And we know time, if it's not managed properly, it gets away from us. And so we have trained our teachers. We continue to support them on strategies that they can use to help them manage their time effectively so that they're able to really and truly use and utilize subject integration in their classroom. The other one we'd like to talk about, the other obstacle, is inadequate training. This might be an obstacle, but we could testify today to the fact that it should not be an obstacle for our teachers here in Guyana and in the regions that are using the enhanced curriculum, because we have exhausted so much resources in training, continually train our teachers on using these strategies and methodologies for this enhanced curriculum. And so it's incumbent upon our teachers to continue to use the strategies and the methods that we have given them in fostering and ensuring that the enhanced curriculum is utilized and implemented the way it should. The next thing I'd like to talk about is, why does subject integration require flexibility? 1, in approach, 2, in timetabling, 3, in location, and so many other things. Why should we be flexible? Why it's important that we be flexible? 1, our learners are different. And as I said before, we've talked about this, how learners are different today. So we have to ensure that our lessons are structured in such a way that we're able to capture all of our learners, those who are visual learners, those who are kinesthetic learners, those who like to hear what they're taught or they're listening to. It has to be loud, those who are nearsighted, those who are farsighted. We have to ensure that our lessons are planned in such a way that they cater for all of the learners in our classroom as much as possible. The other one, lessons should be structured and planned according to their interests, the needs of our learners, and the experiences that they bring to the classroom. And you've heard before about the student profile. When we have the student profile and we know our learners, this here will be catered for. From that student profile, we learn about their needs, we learn about their interests, and we'll also learn about their experiences, what they bring to the classroom. The other important factor here is time. Time has to be considered because we need learners to have a deep understanding of the subject matter. So that means it cannot be rushed. But at the same time, we have to manage our time effectively so that we don't overdo and we're not prolong in our teaching learning sessions. So teachers have to have a wide variety of skills that they know that they could extend a little, but they know that they can't go too much. And so it's important how we apply materials learned is also important. And the classroom situations, these are things that have to be considered even as we try to incorporate subject integration. And so we're here, we continue to talk about subject integration, building context. And how do we do that? We do that by using something called the anchor text. What really is an anchor text? Sure, you've heard about the word anchor text. What really is an anchor text? It says an anchor text is the central text around which a lesson is built or a unit is built. And this might be a piece of text, a narrative piece of text, a descriptive piece of text, an expository piece of text. It might be a picture, it might be an image. Any of these things can be used as our anchor text. What does that mean? It simply means that this is the teaching learning material that the lesson is anchored on. And my colleague, Miss Yasmin, spoke about using the literacy hour and teaching it in 2 weeks cycles. And so this anchor text that we are going to be using, that will last us for 2 weeks. And so coming out of the anchor text, we do something called deconstruction of the text, or what we call in layman's term, bleeding of the text. What do we mean when we say we're deconstructing the text or we're bleeding the text? And as you're going to see on the screen, we have a paragraph there on a little boy and his new bicycle. It says Samir gets a new bicycle, and you'll see the story running on the screen. How do we deconstruct this story? How do we bleed it? What do we do? That simply means we're going to examine this piece of text and we're taking out everything that we can possibly teach for every subject across our timetable. So for example, if we look at this passage, we could take out synonyms for vocabulary. When we go to oral vocabulary, we can take out words and meanings. When we go to comprehension on our timetable, we can take out reading comprehension. We can also do retelling. For grammar, we could look at nouns, be it common nouns or proper nouns. Spelling, we can look at inflectional endings. Reading, we could do reading fluency using the 4 modes of reading. That's our read aloud, shared reading, guided reading, and then we want our children to get to the place of independent reading. For composition, we could do a narrative composition writing for week 2. And for phonics, phonemic awareness, we can do consonant blends. And there are so many other things that we could bleed, deconstruct, take out from this passage on Samir and his new bicycle. And that's what we basically mean when we say deconstruct or bleed the text. When we take out those concepts for the various subjects across our curriculum, our timetable. For mathematics, we could do so much. We could do area. For science, so the ones that I just shared are basically just for language. But looking at this text, we could get social studies. We could get HFLE, where we're talking about sharing. For science, we could get weather condition. It talks about him flying his drone. What was the atmosphere outside like? For HFLE, we could talk about cooperation, sharing, being kind, saying no, respecting people's no. There are so many things that we could take out of this piece of text to teach in every subject area across our curriculum. And that's what we're talking about when we say subject integration for building context using anchor text. So this is our anchor text. We've talked about how we could integrate all of these subjects, and we use that to build context and provide experiences for our learners. When we would have completed that deconstruction of the text, then is where we take those topics, those concepts that we have taken out for each subject area, and we look at our renewed curriculum and we assign specific curriculum outcomes to each of our areas. So for example, vocabulary with the synonym, we assign it 2.0. For composition, 7.1, 7.4, 7.5. For reading, we have 4.2, 4.4, 4.6, 4.7. These are specific curriculum outcomes found in our renewed curriculum that we can assign to these concepts that we have deconstructed from this text. When we have completed that, then we can begin planning our lessons to teach our children. And in so doing, we're integrating it in a way that gives the children the opportunities to build on experiences and learn among and within various disciplines. So no longer, as I said before, are we doing one subject in isolation, but we're teaching in such a way that connections are being made all the time. And in doing this, our children are provided with opportunities to really make long-lasting connections to what is happening in the classroom and what is happening in the real world. So this has brought us to the end of subject integration for building context using anchor text. I trust that this has brought a lot more clarity to our teachers. And as I said, we continue to support them in whatever area they need that support as we implement our renewed curriculum. Thank you very much for listening. Again, I am Claudel Ali Bristol.